introduce you guys, and then I'll just jump into the first question, and then we can start.
Yeah.
And then we can just kind of tag team asking questions
Yeah.
that are pertain to.
Exactly. Just roll. I would be like trying to pull a little bit of what we had prepared, which is not that much.
Thank you. That's what I needed. Thank you.
Okay.
I was concerned.
So I'm going to start. Welcome to the STLCast. The STLCast is the podcast initiative from STL and since we're here at Remurf at the Rocky Mountain Rap Festival, we had the opportunity to talk with some of the coolest names in 3D printing. And today I have right here someone with me that is a very important content creator. He helped me so much in my 3D printing journey, Stefan from CNC Kitchen.
Happy to be here.
And together with him, I have two co-hosts, Hugo, which is the head of education at STL He's one of the heads of STL Academy. And Ben Pendergast, which needs no introduction, a.k.a. It's Boy in Space.
Hello, hello.
So the first thing that we want to ask you is, who really is Stefan besides 3D printing?
Deep question.
Oh, that's a deep question.
Very deep. Yeah.
My wife would say, I'm a father. Well, I'm an engineer and a maker in heart. I like to explore stuff. I've always wanted to build stuff myself. And one of the things that I still remember, this sounds kind of cheesy. I at some point I wanted to understand everything. This is something that I always had in mind when I was young. So understanding how things work, I wanted to disassemble stuff, just know how the world works, know how mechanical stuff works, and this kind of led me to the journey where I am today. Of course, I don't understand everything. I quickly learned that this is not possible, but at least I found my niche where I try to dig deep into stuff others don't understand yet, and I try to bring that over in my videos and just show that
in your videos.
Yeah, because me and Bruno had we were all discussing, and it's like you have very digestible content. Like, so for me, early on, before I started 3D printing, I started watching you because I was also interested in figuring how things worked, right? So being able to see you doing that stuff is really what introduced me into 3D printing, because it was so easy to follow along and understand.
My idea is always, when I create a video, is I try to lure people into watching the video. Luring could also mean like clickbaiting in a way, but I try to tell a story. I try to first start with the idea that I had, why I did all of that, why it is interesting, and then kind of step by step get deeper and deeper and deeper. And at some point I'll lose people, but I also want to make the guys and girls happy that have already a deeper understanding and also want to learn more than just the basics. And I think this is kind of a nice combination to be attractive to newbies, but also to be attractive to other makers that are very knowledgeable in that field.
Yeah, absolutely. And how did you first started with 3D printing? Because you've been there for a while, content creating. So I imagine the 3D printing began even before that.
So I think this was also part of my learning journey. At some point I thought, let's buy an Arduino board, and I started playing around with that and got a stepper motor driver and disassembled an old floppy drive and got the stepper motor out, and then the motor was moving and something like that. I thought, okay, what should I make of that? And I thought, let's build a CNC router. Because I have been into RC flying and just building stuff myself, and I was always lazy, and it always freaked me out when I had to draw something out and then drill it, and then the position wasn't perfect and yada yada yada. And I thought, there are machines for that. So I bought a couple of stepper motors and built a wooden CNC router. And this was kind of at the time when 3D printers became more popular. And initially I thought, okay, let's put a 3D printing head on my CNC router. Fortunately, I never did that, because that would have been a bad idea.
Print in 2D then.
Yeah. But then, 3D printers became more popular, and I did my master. I did a master's, and I kind of set myself the goal, when I finish my master thesis, I can buy and build a 3D printer.
What was your master's on?
My master's was on, so I have a bachelor's in mechanical engineering and design, and I did a master's in numerical analysis. And I did my master thesis was on correlating a finite element model with a real test. So we had big parts with like 400 strain gauges on them, and we did tests, and I did simulations, and I kind of correlated.
I also see a lot of your content in this.
And
in
this
your
was,
master.
so this is basically the point where we get to why I started content creation. Anyways, so I did my master thesis, and I actually finished it a month early because I had that 3D printer basically in my office, and I set myself the goal, okay, at the point when you're finished with your master thesis, you can start building that thing. So of course I was a month earlier finished with the thesis.
That's a good way to make you more productive.
So I could start 3D printing.
And to clarify, this is one that you actually produced yourself. It wasn't like a consumer printer.
It was the DIY quit.
It was a DIY printer. So this was in, I think, 2014 when I started.
Cool.
It was a Mendel 90. It was a kit printer that I purchased from the UK from a guy called Knobhead, who's unfortunately not that active anymore in the community, but he was one of the big first rep creators. Did some really cool designs. Anyway, so I'm a structural engineer by trade. So I designed parts at work, and I had to make sure that they can bear the stresses and everything. So at work, I was used to working with material data. And when I got into 3D printing, I noticed that there's barely any material data available for 3D prints, and I wanted to find out.
There were barely any 3D printers as well.
And the thing is, I also noticed that there are a ton of academic papers, but I often had the feeling that the people that wrote the papers did not have a passion for 3D printing. So they did something, but they did not really understand the process properly and what's important. So I was never happy reading them. So I thought to myself, okay, let's just build a tensile testing machine. And I built a tensile testing machine. And my co-workers actually told me, you're so stupid. Why are you doing that? So I did the first test, and I thought, maybe, well, they say it's stupid, but maybe there's some other guys around.
But why were you doing that? Like,
because I was interested, because I thought about printing functional stuff, and I wanted to know how strong 3D printed parts are. So I built a tensile tester to just break parts and see, is PLA stronger than PETG? And why is it stronger? And what printing orientation?
Layer height is strong.
Which layer height is the strongest and things like that. And so at that point, I started releasing my first videos on that, and it kind of attracted a good audience because this was a field that wasn't really filled at that point yet. Thomas Sanladra did a bit in that direction, but he did it in a way more digestible way. I was way more like the number guy and really talking about megapascals and things like that. And I found my niche that way. I early realized that I'm not a funny guy. I'm not a native speaker. So I had to make something really German, a material strength channel. And well, now I'm here today. So it's kind of funny how that developed.
Yeah, but how did, because I don't know, I imagine you being an engineer and being super theoretical about things, then going on and posting a video on YouTube must have been like a little bit of a leap of faith that you took. But why would you even think about doing that?
So when I was still at school, there were video courses around where I learned how to use Adobe Premiere, how to use After Effects, how to, I don't know. For many years, I've been using video courses and also YouTube to just learn stuff. And I really enjoyed that format because I'm not someone who really likes to read in books and understand these things. I really enjoy if somebody's telling me something, I can do it myself, basically in parallel, and then this sticks with me. So the format of a YouTube video was kind of the thing that fit perfectly well to the way that I learned stuff. And of course, initially it was cringe.
Yeah, it's always cringe. to
Sometimes
post
it
stuff.
continues to be cringe in my case.
Started a few years before you and after, actually. But
And it took quite a while.
it's still the same feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't stand in front of the camera for quite a while because I wasn't really comfortable with that. I'm still not really comfortable with that, to be honest. But yeah, I found my audience. I found people who also found it interesting what I did in my videos. And I kind of steered in that direction where the interest was, what also interested me, because something that's really important for me when making these videos. Of course, money and fame might be motivating, but in the end, if I want to do good work and if I want to be happy, I need to do the stuff that's interesting for me.
Absolutely.
And this is basically like my permanent thing, that I look for stuff that I don't know yet, but I want to find out and really create the data to prove my point.
And it kind of resonates a little bit with that concept of the ikigai, right? What am I good at that also the world needs? And I think it fits perfect in this case because you're able to digest complex content and then create a really interesting video that captivates and motivates.
But also just like on top of it all is like, even though it might not seem significant for lots of people that might not be interested in it, a lot of the data and stuff that you're pulling is probably being used in a lot of cases that's helping everybody in this industry, right?
I think even
or
the
even
manufacturers must look at it and see
right?
what
like,
happens in the tests
and like it's
and do the tests again.
in my case, like the reason I always like looked up to your videos is because you've taken the harder route, because it's much easier to be fun, try to be funny or try to make things really clickbait, but you're using like introducing knowledge in a way that's understandable, that's digestible for either market, like whether it's a beginner or somebody that's very talented in this stuff. I think that's like, it's really cool to see people actually hyper focusing on what they want to do rather than what other people, like maybe myself in some cases, I wouldn't really want to paint, but I'm doing it because I know a lot of people want to see me do it, right? So like, I am not there. Like,
that sounds kind of creepy.
No, but like in the sense is like obviously people want to see me explore painting in general.
No,
right?
and,
they see
and
people
it's related to the content you make.
But I know it's like I can't draw a stick man, right? But I have tried to do stuff and I can see improvement, but it's kind of like where you're going through everything and figuring things out to solve problems that you see. But then the people are going, oh, he has the answer right here, right? Like you've already done all the work. Why would I want to do it? Right?
Yeah.
But this is sometimes interesting also, like reading the comments, that some people are kind of upset that I made it like an 18-minute video about a topic where basically you could answer the initial question right away.
Yeah. But that's the fun of it.
But that's the fun of it. And that's also what people want to see. They want to see the failures. They want to see what route I took, where I failed. And I think failure is something that is very important, because if you never fail, you never learn something. And just also showing that in this format is really fun and also engaging with the community.
And in my point of view, looking at that and showing the failures goes like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be so hard on myself. Maybe it was like a good place that I was trying to push towards something, but I just gave up because...
And the thing is, 3D printing is still very frustrating for the beginners especially. Even though today is a lot less frustrating than it was in the kit days, but still, it's still very frustrating. And then when you see someone that like understands that you need to perform tests in order to get to the best result, it kind of puts that in a little bit into perspective. And I think that's...
And about the long process until the answer, I have a good example. You made a video about extrusion inconsistency, something like this, and how to improve this. And during the video, you showed a lot of testing about first Z movement, and let's see. And then, oh, it's not that. But now I know could be Z movement, so I need to test it. But it was not this case. And then I go to look at the extruder. So you try a lot of different causes, and then you found the right one. So I learned 5 causes for layer inconsistency, but just one was your case. So.
Exactly. And this is kind of the thing that I want to bring over. I want to motivate people looking at the process and thinking about what could different causes be, because only if they understand what could go wrong, they can figure out the thing that is going wrong in their case. And for a specific failure, there could be different possibilities. And in the end, it might just be one or more, but just that process and looking at the process, understanding the process. This is what makes it fun for me. This is one of the things that I also enjoy at my normal job so much. If things go wrong, if things are not as they're supposed to be, figuring out what the reason for that is, it's kind of the treasure hunt for me. That just makes me happy. I've never been a person that could work on a single topic for months and months and months. YouTube is kind of a self-therapy for me. It's kind of a bit
Create your own like challenges to solve, right?
It's kind of a bit selfish because at first it gave me a way to really only work on the things that interest me.
Right.
And on the other hand, it also requires me to document my stuff. I have ADHD, and if for years I have been working on stuff by myself, but I never really finished it. It always was like, it was good enough, and then I did the next thing. But nobody in the end could learn from that, and even I forgot that stuff, and 5 years later I did the same thing again. With my YouTube videos, I do a project, I figure things out, and then I need to basically force myself to do the documentation, to do the video. And this helps me maybe get better at that, thinking about, okay, what should I write down all of the time in order that my video making process is better. And that just helps me finish stuff. And this is really interesting. Sometimes it's painful because there is, I don't know, a new printer, or I have a new idea in my head. And
Almost like that first printer that you had on the side of your masters. You have to finish the other test first.
Yeah, exactly. But this also helps me just to get to the point where the video is finished, because then I can start with something new. And for me, it's the most amazing thing in this job that I can do one topic for 2 weeks and then do something completely different for the next 2 weeks. And this is almost only possible with YouTube and being a content creator and having a crowd that's also interested in that stuff, and which also in the end basically pays the bill for me, because it has been becoming my job.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Yeah.
There was something that you said about doing really technical videos and started for yourself. Which point of the journey you find out, whoa, there's a lot of people interested in that, and I have an idea about it?
I think this was kind of a continuous process, especially I think with YouTube. Especially if you're starting new, it's sometimes hard to figure out what is interesting for a big audience and what also works in that format. And I think that took a couple of years. And initially, I sometimes was really frustrated if I spent a ton of time and dedication into a project and then people were not interested in that. So obviously now I have my video list or video ideas list, and then I have basically a section, okay, how good do I think this is going to perform? And how much passion do I have for that? And in the end, it's basically a graph. How much passion do I have for that? How good do I think it works? And of course, I want to find the sweet spot where both are there. But sometimes, especially, I don't know, during summertime, or if, for example, hopefully my sponsors don't hear that. If it's a sponsored video, but I know that it doesn't need to perform super, super well, and it can maybe also just cater to a specific niche audience. I also find different projects that might not get like 500,000 or a million views, or maybe just 100,000 views in the end. But
which is already insanely big.
It is.
Just to make it clear.
It is crazy to think about these numbers, to be honest. But in the end, I kind of need to find that balance, because at the point when content creation became my job, I also need to, I don't know, get the numbers in the end, because they basically pay the bills in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still with the support of like sponsors or the audience, you have the opportunity to also do two niche things which are more interested to your, I don't know, to the 3D printing crowd only. But in the end, you need to kind of find a balance. But the balance always needs to be, I need to be happy, I need to be interested. Because if I'm not interested in a topic, I do shit work.
Yeah, I think I really see that
Yeah.
as well.
You call it as your therapy. Would you say today that is also your biggest source of rent?
Revenue.
Yeah, sorry.
What part?
For
Content
example,
creation.
today it's you said is a therapy, so it's a good thing about content creation.
Yeah.
But it's also your biggest.
Yes, of course. I still have a normal job. Let's
Yeah.
call it my normal job, 2 days a week. I still enjoy doing it. I love my colleagues. I love the work I do there. But content creation for probably the last 3-4 years has been my main source of income and what is feeding my family.
Yeah.
So of course there's a bit of pressure. To be honest, I never wanted to be self-employed. I was risen very conservatively in a way. If you have a good job in a company, you stick with that job for the next 40 years.
Retire in that company.
Yeah, definitely. And somehow YouTube, with YouTube, I slowly kind of slipped into being self-employed, and I'm still not sure how happy I should be with that. But in the end, if it's paying the bill and if it's making me happy and
Of course.
if it can sustain my family, it's great. And just the opportunities they have risen, just sitting here right now, is something that I would have never expected 5 or 6 years ago when I started.
And now we moved all the way from where you were finishing your masters and you started creating content and your colleagues didn't really understand what you were doing, all the way into the point where YouTube is how you feed your family, as you say. But what happened like in this section in the middle?
COVID.
Like how was the journey from getting to a regular job 5 days a week to content creation 3 days a week in a regular job?
For me.
What job was it? No?
Yeah, what job
Right?
was it? as well?
So initially when I started, my wife was working full time. She was and is a teacher. So she usually also worked at the weekends, and I had my normal job in Germany, 35 hours a week, which is already a good start for having like a side hustle. So initially I seriously just worked 7 days a week, 10, 12, 14 hours, pouring everything into YouTube, and that kind of helped me to just grow the channel initially.
But did you have that expectation, or it was just like for fun, really a hobby that you enjoyed so much?
I enjoyed doing it, and I had the time for it, and it wasn't like really impacting my family because my wife was also working quite a bit. I worked from home most of the time, so I wasn't away. I still had the opportunity to spend time with the family. So this was like the initial first 2-3 years or something like that. And then I had the opportunity to lower my working hours in my normal job from 5 days a week to only 4 days a week. And this already kind of made one additional day free for just doing YouTube stuff, which was good for me because it was just additional time for working on the channel and working on things. And then COVID hit. And I was only working 2 days a week because we had, in Germany, it's called Kurzarbeit. It's short working. If a company is in like a short-term crisis, they can basically say, okay, you're only now just working 50% or 40% of your time, and you're kind of getting subsidized by the state in order that the company is not laying off their people.
That's very interesting, yeah. So in order to
But-
preserve the jobs, like the
They
company is
preserve the
allowed
job
to reduce,
short, exactly.
and the government pays the
Yeah,
difference.
pays most of the difference. In short crisis, if you have the expectation that work's gonna come back, because if they are firing their people, the state anyways need to pay for their unemployment.
Yeah.
And for the companies itself, it's also bad because they are losing their people that might have a ton of knowledge.
exactly.
So this was helping me quite a bit. So only 2 days working. COVID, we had I worked remote all of the time, so I was basically all the time at home. And I could pour even more time into that. And
Yeah.
then our daughter was born, and I continued working only 2 days a week. Of course, I had to spend more time with the family, but I still had a ton of time, or I wouldn't say a ton of time, but I still had enough time to kind of create the content that was necessary to sustain that channel. And especially during COVID, 3D printing grew a lot because people were staying at home, didn't have anything else to do, bought a 3D printer, got a new hobby. And this was a huge push for me at that time. People were printing PPE, masks, shields, and things like that.
Remember that? Yeah.
That was also attracting new people to the hobby.
Yeah. No, I think like COVID is really like where like a lot of people just were just sitting at home like bored, watching people online and being like, maybe it isn't that hard. Like maybe you don't have to be like super genius with computers to figure this out, right?
As bad as COVID was, for me personally, it was the best time because we had a newborn at home, and
You could be there.
I was
100%
there
of the
all
time.
of the time.
Yeah.
And it of course attracted a ton of people to my channel. So it grew and grew and grew and continued growing.
You think there was like a key factor to it when you look back, or you think it was just like constantly creating and evolving your content little by little?
Of course, in a way, I was lucky. In a way, you need to be lucky that you are successful on the platform. But at some point,
I kind of agree with that a little bit as well.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Because
Obviously, you have to expose yourself to the chance of being lucky. But
yeah.
Yes.
I was especially lucky in that point that the first video that I made got 250 views during the first night. If nobody would have watched my first video, I'm sure I would not have continued making
oh my
YouTube
God, you
videos.
can imagine
right?
that.
Yeah.
So glad for those 250 people.
Yeah.
Thank you
But
very
that's
much.
like
Cheers for them.
like the very interesting thing about it is there's a lot of people that like obviously view myself, probably you and stuff, where they're like, oh, you just got lucky, right? And there is definitely that initial luck, but there's so many people that I've witnessed that have come into content creation that have just stopped because they'll ride the wave, and as soon as it comes crashing down, they don't continue to try to strive for the next
And they
level.
do not adapt.
Yeah, right.
And the thing is, especially, the content creation market is flooded with creators.
Yeah.
And if you are not a unique personality, if your content is not unique, you will not succeed. You can still perform okay, but you're just one of 1,000, one of 10,000. So the approach that I did, making things different than others did, exploring topics that nobody else did before, it was kind of a luck for me because these are the things that interested me. This was the reason why the channel was successful and is still successful, and I'm happy that there is not that much competition, especially in that space. To be honest, because maybe this is a bit imposter syndrome, but of course sometimes you're not 100% happy with your content. You think you could have done it better, and you think, okay, there are so many guys that would be able to do that way better than I am. But in the end, it seems to work. People seem to enjoy my content. I enjoy what I'm doing, to be honest.
And you said about adaptation, and this is something that I really see, because you do have a unique style, you have a unique approach. Your channel is very different from a lot of other channels that we see out there. Even when you're reviewing a printer or stuff like that, it's different in a lot of ways. But how did you get to that style? Because it feels like from what we're saying that you kind of like already started doing that with that style, but I'm pretty sure that it evolved into that somehow.
It definitely evolved into that state. Initially, I was really on the material testing, doing filament reviews route, and that kind of worked. And I think at that time also attracted this 3D printing bubble. But at some point, I also realized that this is not really that interesting for a big crowd. So I kind of adjusted the content that I did in a way that it is more attractive for many people. So instead of like reviewing filament XYZ, I try to find an interesting material and do a project with that and kind of do a review showing what that material can do in a way that is also interesting for a non-3D printing audience, for example. And this is just understanding how YouTube works and also where you want to get. If you just want to stay in the 3D printing niche, of course, I could have continued doing filament tests, but then my videos might only get like 20, 30,000 views maybe in the end. But if I want to do this as a business, if I want to grow the brand, if I want to be successful on the platform, I need to find things that attract many people. And so I still can do 3D printing stuff, but I kind of need to form a story around that is interesting and not just like hugely technical.
Yeah, I have a question. Sometimes I need to study 3D printing, so I watch you. What do you do when you want to study 3D printing, when you need to study more?
He watches his old videos.
You cannot see.
Yeah, that's why I hate them.
So tell us, what do you do for study 3D printing?
Copying your own homework.
Of course, I'm also active, like on Reddit, Twitter, and things like that, where I gonna get in, where I'm inspired. I have other creators that do very interesting stuff that also inspire me, or where I can do kind of research and things like that. Of course, there's sometimes like academic papers. If I have an idea, I do a bit of literature research and trying to find some prior art, either to know that there is nothing out there, so I really need to do it from scratch, or just read what they did and maybe figure out what I do not agree with, and then just do it myself, or even just try to replicate it if it's something really interesting. But in the end, kind of, I need to find the problems. I need to find the things that do not work, and where I know that others have a similar problem, and there isn't like a well-documented and also in an interesting style resource around to show that, because these are the videos and the project that they usually perform really well, because I know that if I'm asking 10 3D printing guys, hey, what would you do if you had that problem? I would either get 10 different answers, or maybe 5 of them would say, I have no clue, but I have exactly that problem.
And 4 of them would answer, level your bed. Which is not a thing anymore, by the way. We're old school.
Yeah. So, but this is kind of the interesting thing. So if you, for example, just browse around Reddit, there's sometimes these kind of repeating stupid questions. But if I also notice that they always get like stupid or wrong answers, I notice, okay, this is a topic that might be interesting, because
there's a gap of knowledge.
There's a gap of knowledge there. And if I realize that this is also something that maybe I sometimes have problems with, I sometimes just say, okay, let's do it. Let's make a video out of that. And especially if this is something that I also regularly experience, this is a great story to tell. So I can start with, I had exactly that problem, and this is how I solved it. It's just a thing that you said before with the extrusion inconsistencies. I had a 3D printer that did not print properly. I know so many people that have exactly a similar problem. What could be the causes? So this makes me happy, because I can go on that deep dive on that hunt for the problem. This satisfies me in the end if I find a solution, and then if I can document that and get the feedback that so many had exactly the same thing, and they finally figured out how they can print better parts, nicer parts, it's just a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally. I am thrilled.
That's awesome. Yeah,
be
that's
here.
awesome.
So like go back a bit, like when you mentioned earlier how you shifted your content style to try to allow other or newer people coming in. I think that's something that has been missed from a bunch of the community, as seeing like when you have things going on and newer things coming out, there's a lot of I had to level my bed, so you should have to kind of mentality to a lot of the conversations.
Yeah, I've been through the hustle. You need to go through that as
right.
well.
So it's always there's always this kind of like weird energy about newcomers, right? And in my opinion, I'm curious to hear yours. Is I feel like as long as it's done in a positive way, introducing more people to this is only helping innovation and newer things coming out in the future, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Because obviously being somebody that started out on TikTok, and I focus more on catering my stuff to like, look, this is awesome, you could do it too kind of thing, right? And I try to dive into like teaching some things.
Yeah.
For me, it's obviously, I get hit with it all the time, like, right? So
This is the thing for me. I always want my viewers to finish a video and that they have the impression that they learned something new, that this wasn't just entertainment. I want to make edutainment. So this is
what was the term that you used?
Sorry?
Adultainment.
Edutainment.
Edutainment. So it's education with entertainment.
Exactly.
I like that concept.
Yeah.
that's something that like I've really wanted to get more into now that I've kind of like peaked at this point, in my opinion, like on that platform specifically. Just because like you with your content, for instance, it's like you're at least getting something out of it, but it can also be kind of satisfying or interesting to watch, just like somebody cooking a dinner or something, right? Like, right. So
then we were talking about when you started to shift. You reduced your regular working hours in order to put more content creation hours in your week. And then eventually you found other sources of income as well, like your e-commerce and that kind of stuff. So how that played into how does that fit into your whole business strategy and the things that you're trying to create around the CNC Kitchen brand?
So I'm a horrible business person. I'm kind of happy that everything worked out as it worked out. I realized at some point that there needs to be a bit of diversification because different income sources, they fluctuate. YouTube ad revenue can be horrible at some time. So if you have like stable memberships or Patreon or something like this could be a positive thing. Then you have kind of a couple of months where you do a lot of print reviews where you might get affiliate money, but the videos don't perform that well. So this is always in a bit of a balance. And then like 2.5 to 2 years ago or something like that, we also tried to get into using our brand or using my brand and getting into selling products, branding products. And this has been working very well for us because I have an audience. I have a big audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why not? And it's hard to say use that audience, but why not
that audience has
sell something to that audience, which is maybe completely new, but I can stand behind that. I know that it's good quality. I know that it's useful. Yeah. And say, hey, use that. That's really good stuff. I use that every day. I enjoy using that.
It's German made, which just alone is a very good thing when manufacturing.
That's not German made.
It's German.
Making stuff in Germany is hard. But the thing that we do is we do our QC, our quality control. So, for example, for the heat set inserts that we started selling, we were not the first ones who did that. And this is not something special. It's basically a catalog part. But we wanted to give my audience the opportunity okay, you can sell a pack of threaded inserts from a no-name brand on Amazon for $10, or you can buy our threaded inserts for $10. They have the same shape, but they might not be the same quality in the end, because we try to make our quality control. And when we get to that point that we can also compete with other brands, but my viewers, they have the impression that they can support me this way, and also have the good feeling that they can expect good quality, I think it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah.
And we hugely underestimated the effort that goes into creating on products and everything behind that, all the logistics.
Yeah, the
and
e-commerce logistics
Well,
is crazy.
The left-handed deburring tool.
Yeah.
If only YouTube told your analytics of how many people were left-handed, but either way, like, I never heard of anything like that.
But this is kind of the interesting thing. So with the deburring tool, I had this plastic deburring tools for many years, and I saw other brands also selling deburring tools, but with a horrible deburring tip, which you can use to, I don't know, deburr metal plumbing pipes. They were horrible, but I had been using a really nice tip for like 5 years personally. And at some point we thought, why not start selling these? And then we start selling these, and people were asking, oh, this is an unsymmetrical blade. I'm left-handed. Can I use it? So we thought, okay, let's get into the rabbit hole and find a supplier that grinds for us special blades for left-handed people.
Well, how do you size the market for that?
Well, it's 10%. You can't just go on.
The global population, how many percent are left-handed? That's it.
The amount of times though that I never open Twitter.
Yeah,
like, Twitter is a scary place for me. Like it.
TikTok is a scary place for me.
Well, we all have those places, but
we all have those places.
I remember probably for 2 weeks, every like 4 or 5 posts was just that product every time, because people were like, wow, caring about the lefties.
So we were sold out in like, I don't know, I think 2 days or something like that. So, and this is another problem with like e-commerce and sourcing parts from overseas or from China. So I think our first batch was like 1,000 or 1,500 of these deburring tools. And we checked the first ones, and we noticed that 70% were scratched. So we just had to throw them away.
Oh, damn it.
So with like the first batch of 1,500 deburring tools, we just had like 500 left in the end. And and then we got sold out, and we had to order new ones and tell the supplier that the quality was shit and things like that. And this just takes so much time to figure out.
The negotiating part, the figuring out how to import.
Yeah. But like the comments, like going like, this is just another reason why we love CNC Kitchen and stuff, and it's just like, I made it all worth it.
And the thing is, so with normal deburring tools, you get these blades also from other suppliers, for the right-handed ones. But for the lefty ones, we found a niche, because there weren't any small deburring tips for left-handed people available. We didn't find any.
Well,
so the market might not be only 10% of our normal deburring tools. Since we tap into a market where there's no solution yet, we might be able to sell like 50% of our deburring tools to left-handed people.
But in my case, for instance, like, there's many times where you're right-handed and you can't get into an area, right? So if you have to be a little bit more cautious and have a secondary tool, like, there's tons of times I've had to like use a deburring tool that I can't just get in the right position.
That's a good marketing pitch.
Yeah,
we can even sell our lefty blades to right-handed people.
That's the opposite. The opposite.
You already have a left hand. Think about it.
Why not use both?
But you said something really important, because you were saying that how you think it's a win-win between you and your audience when you find a good product, and you test it out, and then it's there, it's available. They know that they can trust you. And how is that relationship when we are talking about printer manufacturers and filament manufacturers? Because this is also like very important for them to be able to have you as an official tester, as beta tester as well, but also to have your stamp of approval, which is tricky sometimes, especially because content creators also get like printers that are not ready for the market, some cases.
Cut it off. Turn on the cameras.
We need the battery.
Well, one of the things I quickly figured out that I don't have the time for beta tests. So if somebody, if a brand is approaching me and saying, "Oh, we're gonna release like a new printer in 2 months. We have some units right here."
Pre-production units.
Pre-production units. I usually reject them because it's not worth. I don't have the time for it, to be honest. So I think in the end, so we just talked about products. So with the products that we make, we currently try not to tap into markets where there might be other companies that I am working with actively or used to work with. So to have this conflict of interest. So I probably might not be selling like a 3D printer soon. Of course, with other companies, they are happy to supply machines because they want the stamp of approval. But also sometimes they're just happy for exposure, and even like a bad video is good advertisement in the end because people know that a product exists in the first place.
Yeah, they're just also good.
Yeah, the
That's
good old
interesting.
emails stating, this printer would be great for your channel and help you grow followers.
Yeah.
I checked your following, and I do not see very many.
How about 3D printing? Does it do 3D printing as well?
But it's like those, like, it's almost like pressure,
Yeah.
right? Like a lot of those companies are just,
Yeah.
they're trying to get whatever they can,
Yeah.
right?
But the thing is, and this is
But it's also like, it's a two-way street the way I see it, because I think there's a lot of valid knowledge and valid information that can come back from those early testers.
But the other thing, though, is that kind of tactic, I think in some cases does make somebody feel a bit biased in situations. Like smaller creators and stuff that are just getting into it might get a free printer, and then the video for the review is, I want to thank and like go into detail about how like they've sent them all these products, and it's like, I think that's where it's like there's a detachment of like,
Yeah, there's a conflict of interest there.
But and also the thing, content creators shouldn't be beta testers. If a company is bringing out a product, they should test their product themselves. And
I
if
agree
they
with that
don't,
as well.
Yeah.
and if they don't have people testing it, they need to get them, and they also need to pay for their work. And this is a thing that unfortunately has been becoming. Which is a common thing in our industry, that machines are being released that are just not working properly, and the companies are just wait for others to fix them. And this is pretty unfortunate, in my opinion. It might be fun for some because they see a printer as a project, and the whole idea behind getting into 3D printing is to improve a 3D printer further and further and further, not really printing something with it.
yeah.
But if you want to use a 3D printer as a tool, you want a machine that works, and you don't want to tinker with it. So you expect, if you buy something, that it works.
And I don't want to bring brains or anything of this. I think that's why like Prusa became so respectable, because it was always about the platform that they continued to focus on. Right?
Yeah.
It wasn't just, we're releasing 17 printers this month, like kind of aspect that it seems like it's been going. Like, it's like we have 3 different versions of the same printer at different price points, and it's like, I think that's where they got like a lot of like huge followings, right?
Yeah. In the end, you have basically the distinction. Do you want to buy a project? Is that what you want to get into, or do you want to have a tool that you want to use? So it is sometimes hard, and sometimes I'm really frustrated if I get a product that is just not, that there are obviously flaws with it right out of the box, where you think somebody who
The R&D knows about this issue.
I'm asking myself, either there wasn't any quality control at all, or their R&D is just stupid and has never used a 3D printer before, or they are just blandly sending it out and say, okay, community's gonna fix it. It's gonna...
They are going to figure out a way.
Yeah, like it's definitely a little bit scary because we've all been there where we've accepted products to test out and stuff early on and everything. But when you get a product and you're told a date for release, and there's like 10 different software updates leading up to that release, and then the software update just kind of a month later, and you're like, there's all these issues that we've been talking about or reporting, and nothing seems to. It's like now that the product's out, it's kind of forgotten at this point, right?
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I'm hoping we see a shift with like newer competition nowadays, right? But I don't think that's ever going to fully happen.
Yeah, well, it's also like, I mean, it is a little bit of a, well, you might disagree with me, but it is a little bit of a hard task as well. We're at a point where 3D printers are pretty evolved as well.
Yeah.
But it's very complex for you to have a desktop machine that is able to make so much just like a 3D printer does. So I understand how, like, oversimplifying things that are really complex in the end of the day is a difficult task. They've been doing printers for long, so they shouldn't be happening anymore. But we're still, I guess, in the early days of 3D printing somehow.
And with like not like a lot of printers aren't fully assembled either, so there's always the variables of proper maintenance and like knowledge, like key stuff that's left out on a lot of videos, right? Like that's why it's really nice in my case to see you go in detail of problems and show the things that didn't work, because that might be the first thing somebody's been working on and ended up quitting, because that's another thing that really hurts me with 3D printing is I have a friend or a family member that watches my videos and then they get into it and they just give up right away because they're fighting the same problem over and over, but it's been the wrong problem this whole time, or wrong thing to solve.
Yeah, people come up to me, come and ask me, like, very often, should I get a 3D printer? And my answer will always be yes, because I really love 3D printing. But I know that I have gone through, I was really persistent in order to really like it. But I think, I don't know how it is with the current state of 3D printers, because I think it's got so much easier now. But I think it's still a little bit of a frustrating experience.
With new technology, there's also new problems that seem to arise, and that's another issue in itself, is people have been doing it for so long that have gotten into the newer technology or trying to solve problems with how they were solved, and it might not always be the right answer, right?
But that's actually also one of the things that honest reviews should kind of help, that people that are new to the hobby can find machines that are working to their expectation, meaning that if they buy a $200 machine, they know what will work and what won't work.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if they want to have the no problem experience, they might need to spend a little bit more money.
Yeah.
So this is the task of like honest reviews to make these points clear. I think this is also one of the responsibilities that we are having, to set the expectations properly.
Yeah, because a lot of people, I don't know how it is in the US or in Europe, but people will start with the entry-level printer. And then if they get into it, they might perhaps move on to a $500 printer. But it's much more difficult to start. Sometimes when you don't have like an auto bed leveler, or if you're doing a printer that still has the Bolden extruder, it's going to be a lot trickier for you to get to the point where you actually enjoy 3D printing. But I feel at least in Brazil, most people will start with those printers, and they will have to find their way into the better printers as they get better, as they evolve and really want to stick with the hobby.
And to go back is like, for instance, Hugo, obviously you do a lot of your content in Portuguese, but you do help a ton of people all the time producing content. And then there's you, where you do all of these awesome things and make it simplistic for everybody to be able to digest. And it's kind of like, I do everything usually on live streams with people, but I'm trying to like learn to sit down, like you said, is hunker down on something and get it done kind of thing. And that's something that I really want to shift towards, because I know I help a lot of people, but a lot of people don't see it, right? So I think it's cool to see, like, it's inspiring for me to go and see like how you have kind of figured out your own problems and solving them in a way that is still interesting to multiple parties.
Well, I honestly sometimes envy people like you who just can stand in front of a camera and start talking.
I already have to look at myself when I brush my teeth in the morning. So I got pretty used to it.
Sometimes in my head, and this might just be jealousy, it sometimes seems to me like easy content.
Yeah,
and
yeah, I 100% hear.
I'm envying that a little bit because I think I won't be happy with the content that I would produce just standing in front of a camera, start talking, because I'm not a native English speaker. My thoughts are here and there and in my pants, and
yeah.
So writing a script and thinking about what a story could be just helps me tremendously just organize my thoughts and have this like line going through my content, because otherwise it's just gonna be like disturbing and not good content, not the content that I would be happy with.
The other thing though, like I'm sure there's people that think what you're doing is easy as well, right? And I don't think there's as many versus me, and this isn't a comparison, right? But there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, right? And I want to have time to talk to you, and obviously if we do something telling my story, there is a lot of really meticulous things that I like structure, and I've helped
going on camera.
many creators with these things. And obviously you've probably noticed me say words multiple times over and over and make mistakes here and there. It's all pre-planned. But
I have a set of questions here for us to wrap up really quick. Now, if you want to keep it short, I think it's better because we don't have so much time left. But the first one is, what advice would you give to someone that is starting 3D printing today?
Stick with PLA.
Cool one. That was the best advice.
I did.
Don't buy silk filament.
I wouldn't agree. No. Wait a few more months to buy silk filament.
He said, stick with PLA. Where do I sign? Don't buy silk. Oh, take it off.
I don't want to sign anymore.
Buy regular 4040 3D NatureWorks PLA. No matte filaments, no silk colors.
Did you guys wrote it down?
And then what advice would you give to someone that is starting to create content as well?
Find something you're passionate in and find your own niche, because you need to be passionate to not burn out right away. And find your niche to have a higher chance to be successful. You either need to find a niche, or you need to do things better than others do. Otherwise, it's hard to succeed in that very competitive space.
Yeah. Cool. And what advice would you give to STL Flix? Since we're here, why not get it?
A bit of lucky, right?
Do you have a pen and paper?
Start making YouTube promos, because I already told you that before. In my bubble that I'm in, and my bubble is Twitter and YouTube especially, I basically never really heard of STL Flix before. We talked about STL Flix once in our podcast because we got like a comment asking, hey, is that legit? Or, okay, we don't know. We looked at the page. Okay, they're in Brazil. Looks strange. I don't know. I think there's a huge untapped audience there. So
I think there's huge untapped audience in there as well.
Yeah.
Perhaps this is why we're doing a podcast for you. No, just
we got it.
We have it.
So, this is basically a bit chilling for you, but I was really surprised to see the quality and the uniqueness of models that you have there.
Thank you.
And I expected, I don't know, just simple rip-offs of other models there.
No, we have.
This is something that you really do well. And I had, maybe people, at least at that point when I did the research, there wasn't a ton of information about what models that you can get on that website. So it was just, do I get there? It's really strange. So spread the word.
Nice, thanks. And then the last question before we wrap up is, what would you like where would you want 3D print to go? Not where you believe it will go, but where would you like it to go? As a community, as a hobby, as an activity, as a tool?
Dream big.
Sorry?
Dream big.
Dream big. So I come more from the functional 3D printing side. I would like to have a way to efficiently and properly print replacement parts for accessories and things that you have at home, because it always pains me to see or to throw things away where just a small plastic part broke. I would like companies to commit, but that's actually bad for business, to have specific placement parts where they know that they regularly break available somewhere to download. The problem is that it's kind of... So a 3D model doesn't necessarily mean that the part performs as the company intends it to, but with like more closed systems that we are getting with better materials and things like that, you could, for example, say, I don't know, Prusa is already partnering on printables with different brands there. And if these brands say, okay, if you have a Prusa printer, if you have this Prusa meant material and you print that part, it will perform as we intended. And I would like to have this way more generalized, that we can use 3D printing in the future to fix parts, to make new parts, to maybe modify parts in a way that it's secure, it saves the environment in a way that we produce less waste. But unfortunately, we are kind of we're people of obsolescence. Machines and things that you buy should break within once the warranty runs out.
Ooh, shiny.
This is one of the things I really hope it's going towards. It will not be the disruptive technology where we will 3D print everything in the future, but there are certain applications where this is really strong. It's easy and it's becoming way more approachable. So we'll see where we're getting.
Yeah. That's Stefan's dream.
Yeah, awesome, man. Thank you very much for participating. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation. We are all super thrilled to have you here, and we are really happy that you accepted our invitation.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. I've never been in such a professional podcasting studio.
Yeah, I set that up just earlier.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Stick with us because there are more to come.
Yeah.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Amazing.
That was it. Thank you very much, man. That was incredible.